Well, a very good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, all about evaluating the value stream and unlocking innovation opportunities. Everybody should be pretty much on now. I think there's a few sort of stragglers coming in. You should have audio and you should be able to see me. So if anybody has got any challenges or issues, do sort of pop a little note in the question box there. So all about today's webinar, it's no secret we're in very transformative times right now, but there is opportunity. And over the next sort of half an hour, 45 minutes, I'm going to share with you just how you can unlock that opportunity and provide some clarity and guidance around that in terms of what to do when we're in very difficult times. Now, Charles Darwin says it best in my view. It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most adaptive and indeed responsive to change. And in truth, change isn't really anything new. It's a constant in today's modern business world. And the fact is that disruption is everywhere, irrelevant of the times that we're in right now. Very sadly, COVID-19 has come along and kicked our backsides, for want of a better phrase, and kind of forced companies to think very differently. It's forcing us to act differently and ultimately open our minds to new ways of working. Now, as devastating and dreadful as this virus is on sort of humanity, there is opportunity. And as business leaders, it's your job to lead your organizations through this mess and ultimately identify where there is opportunity, not just protect, but ultimately identify where there is indeed opportunity. And my point here is this, you have to be responsive to change. And in truth, about 80% of companies are configured wrong. They're not agile, they're not able to respond to change quickly. And so in truth, it's why so much of the disruption that takes place, none of us expected COVID-19, but we can and should be configured in our organizations, or we should configure our organizations to be able to respond to disruption, because ultimately disruption isn't new. It's true, it's why our high streets really have been pretty much decimated, and very traditional organizations across all sectors have lost huge gains, because ultimately they've lost those gains to more agile, digitally savvy organization. It's why I kind of truly believe in that Charles Darwin quote, really, that it's the ones who will survive are the ones that are most adaptive and ultimately responsive to that change. Now, some of you on here don't know me, and so I felt it'd be pertinent and only right and proper just to tell you a little bit about me and who I am. My name's Chris Williams, and I've spent the last 20 years helping organizations as a management consultant, indeed running my own organization at one stage, to sort of meaningfully help drive through change and transformation. I've been providing or helping those organizations understand solutions to complex problems and finding new revenue streams, and ultimately leveraging digital technology to achieve that. I won some awards along the way. I've met some very interesting people, to include your man, Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple. I was very fortunate to spend some time with him, as well as lots of other great business leaders and organizations. And during my time, I've understood and learned things from those people and their business models. And what I've done is I've helped shape those learnings bespokely for the companies that I've worked in, those companies that I've worked with and for. Some are on the screen there, some great businesses and brands over the years. And it's not just those, there's many others, small and large, that I've helped along the way. And I ran my own management consultancy and tech company for about 7 years before becoming an independent consultant. And I grew that business from my kitchen table with staff and operations in the UK, USA, and Europe. And so I've been a CEO. I've wrestled with the pains of cash flow and staff and making tough decisions and seeing really tough times, admittedly nothing like COVID-19, but still very disruptive times along the way. Now, I don't say any of this to impress you in any way, but it's just to impress upon you that, I've got the battle scars and I've sat in your seat as a business leader. And I understand. I just want to let you know that I understand kind of what it takes. I know what you're feeling right now. So I'm not your average management consultant that works on theory and fluff and principles derived from books in a classroom. I've been there, done it. I still do it. And I'm doing this stuff for a living. And so as I say, I'm not doing this to impress you, but just to let you know that I've kind of been doing this for a number of years, and I'm still doing it today and helping those organizations to navigate a course through disruptive times. And so today is all about helping you understand how we can leverage the value stream and indeed value stream mapping. So what I've done is I've broken this down into 3 parts: value stream mapping, and 3 types of business value. Now, on the value stream piece, how you can identify opportunities in your business by reviewing your value stream or value streams, because you may have more than one, is what this section is going to be about. And in that particular section, I'm going to talk about what a value stream is so that you can identify yours inside your business. As I say, you may have more than one, you might have multiple value streams, but that's what we're going to do in that session. Now, once you understand a value stream, it's important to map it. So what we're then going to look at is how we map, or VSM, value stream mapping. That's what we're going to do after that. And the mapping streams is all about really you visualizing the flow, waste, and where you can unlock potential. It's a value stream mapping is a highly underutilized activity in a lot of organizations, but this is where this stuff really comes to life. Now, in truth, value stream mapping and value streams are fantastic exercises, and you'll see the value in them as I go through them in a moment. However, neither of them are particularly helpful without understanding the 3 types of business value. Now, most of you will be focused on 2 of those types of business value right now, but I will introduce a 3rd that won't be new to you. You'll have seen it before and heard of it before, but it might not necessarily be on your radar right now due to the times that we're in. So let's get started through this. Now, do feel free to ask questions as I go through the webinar. There is a question function on Zoom that you can ping questions into, and as I step through, I'll try and get to those and answer them as I'm going through. But there will be a Q&A at the end also, where I'll kind of summarize and go through that. So let's get started. So before we talk about value streams and the mapping part, it's important to understand the 3 types of business value. Now, there are only 3 types, in my view, of business value, and all and any activity inside of your business should be placed into one of those 3 pots, if not multiple pots. And those are very simply protecting revenue, saving money, and new money. They are the 3 types of business value. And by understanding those, you can quickly discern and categorize activity being undertaken into your business into one of those 3 pots. Now, any activity or action in your business, from a strategic level to a tactical level, should support one of those 3. And if it ain't, stop doing it, because they are the only 3 types of value, in my view, that we should be focusing on and that ever exist. And this is really important, because very often when businesses are in a state of flux and disruption, and if you think about the times that we're in now, a lot of businesses people start to firefight. And when we're in that kind of disruption and change, we become very focused often on one thing, and that's the protecting of income. Now, naturally, that's normal and okay, but as leaders in your business, you've got to help bring some clarity, focus, and simplicity to all of this. And so using those 3 types of business value in the context of value and value stream mapping is really what's going to help you to prioritize during these tough times. And let me just explain in a little more detail, sort of contextually, what these are. So to contextualize this, if we think about the current climate, all businesses are looking at protecting revenue right now and saving cash, and rightly so. But as we get into the value stream, what you should also be looking at is the opportunity for new money. And that's the 3rd one I mentioned in the introduction. That's the one that probably a lot of people aren't really considering right now, but there is opportunity in there. So let me just give you some examples of these 3 types of business value. So new money, could be new services, new products, even a new business, whether that's an acquisition of a new business or a new startup or something that you can identify in your business. This is all about bringing in new revenue into the organization, cash that doesn't exist at this minute in time. The second one is saving money. This is all about, as it says on the tin, pretty much efficiency. So think about automation of tasks. Perhaps we can reduce a cost to deliver certain services or certain products. The net impact of that, increased margin. And obviously increasing productivity might mean higher margin output. So that's what sort of saving money is all about. It's not necessarily cutting cost in a traditional sense. It's about identifying areas, as I say, contextually when we're looking at a value stream, about how we can start to reduce cost in certain areas to save money, increase profitability. The final and third one, of course, is protecting revenue. And this is all about increasing your value output. So keeping you relevant to your customers and staying ahead of the competition. Now, this could be through enhancing your existing offerings and ultimately protecting areas of services that you deliver to ultimately protect your cash. And that's what protecting revenue is all about. So they're the three types of business value. As I said, understanding those three types of value is going to really help bring clarity, focus, and keep things simple. And by understanding those three types of value, we can look at the value stream and value stream mapping, and you can really begin to get this clarity, focus, and simplicity, meaning that you can navigate a course much better and much quicker through challenging and disruptive times such as that we find ourselves in now. So let's start to look. So three types of business value. Now let's start to look at the value stream. Now, before we get into what it is, I just want to share with you why it's important to understand value streams. Now, understanding the value stream provides business leaders with a holistic picture. So this is a very strategic task and it helps avoid chaos and help provide very clear direction. Now, I'm not suggesting that there is lots of chaos inside your particular business, but in any given crisis time, chaos can very quickly ensue. We need to get out the weeds and we need to look at things more strategically. And so this is kind of why we do that value stream. We want to look at things and get real clarity on the current state. Now, what is a value stream? Well, you will have definitely one, but you may have a number of value streams inside your organizations. And very simply put, a value stream is the flow from an order of your product or service to you getting paid. Think order to cash. That's it. Understanding that value stream in your business is a key step, because what it's going to do is inform you. It's going to help you understand what is the current state and what it potentially could be. So it's going to enable you to visualize the complete step-by-step flow from order, the order being placed, to that being then delivered to your end customer, whatever that service or product is, and you getting paid. That's the order to cash bit. Now that flow is your value stream, and it's a series of processes, action steps that passes through your organization's departments to deliver services or products to your customer. On the screen there, I've got a very sort of primitive example, and this is a manufacturing type example because I've done it so that it's just easy to understand. Raw material to end product, that is a value stream. So in that example, you've got the raw material coming in, stamping process, machine process, assembling everything up, shipping it to the customer. Think a production line in a car manufacturing plant, raw material, everything coming together, being machined and processed, assembling it all out on the production line, and a car drives out the other end. And in the production plants in a car manufacturing facility, one of them comes off every 90 minutes. So that gives you an idea of flow. That's what a value stream is, and part of your job and part of one of your first tasks, and this is the next slide I'm going to jump to in a moment, is to start to understand exactly what your value streams are inside of your business. It's order to cash. There'll be maybe one or more, and your job is to visualize that flow. So the first task, identify those value streams. As I say, some of you may have more than one, and that's okay, but just get those down as quickly as possible. Now, I'm really going to emphasize this point now. This is a strategic task, and it's really important to understand that value streams and value stream mappings are not about looking at the micro, it's about looking at the macro. And that's an often big misconception when doing these tasks, especially when sometimes they're unfacilitated. People often get lots of people involved, lots of perhaps middle management, and sometimes other areas of business. And you've got sort of lots of people in a room. In this case, in today's environments, it'll be, on Zoom sessions like this, pounding lots of information in, and you get way too far down into the nitty-gritty. You don't want to be doing that. Your step is to keep this at a strategic level. It's a leadership task. So it's really important not to get caught up in the weeds with this. Stay strategic, focus on the macro and the high level. As I say, this is a leadership task and should only be carried out by leadership within your organization. If you're a small business, and I noticed that on some of the registrations, some of you were probably smaller businesses, this might be just done by you and maybe have your CFO involved. But for larger businesses, I wouldn't have more than 4 people on this. So even with larger businesses, I wouldn't have more than 4 people. My experience has always been the more you load into this, too many cooks in the kitchen. So these are the steps that I want you to be thinking about and start to take. So value stream and value stream mapping are about the what. So we discern and define that it's strategic. But in a lot of environments, especially high pressure environments like we find ourselves in today with lots going on, people often jump into the firefighting. To stay away from that, I want you to take a step back and I want you to understand the value stream and the value stream map process, that it really helps bring about some order to that strategic planning. So take some time. It doesn't need to be a lot of time either. It might take a few hours, but you don't need to spend days on this stuff. Say keep it very high level and start to look at your revenue lines, because that's going to inform you about your value streams. Look at the products and the service that you offer. Remember order to cash, and then just really simply just start to list what you've got. Take a bit of paper and start to list out order to cash. What are your value streams? In simple terms, that could be just a list of your services for now. And then the value stream is what supports the delivery of those services. So that's the difference between the two. If you're struggling a little bit, just think about the services that you offer, products that you supply, order to cash. Your value stream is what supports the delivery of that. That's what I need you to get clear in your mind. Once you've got that and you've got that underway, we can then move into the value stream mapping. Now let's start to look at this as an exercise and what you should do before we start the what. Again, let's understand the why. Now trust me, as crazy as this might sound, but trust me when I say this, when you produce a value stream map, it will talk to you. It is going to inform you. If you do it right, it's going to inform you, and it will tell you where you have obstacles and where there is opportunity to improve, automate, and even develop new products and services. In many, many cases, what I tend to find is the value stream map will also show you where you are investing heavily in legacy IT systems and where you should be diverting that spend into new, more efficient programs of work. Often, and I'm going to dig into this a little bit deeper in a few more slides, but very, very often, organizations have got a lot of legacy stack, whether it's legacy tech stack, legacy stuff that is burning a lot of cash. And when that's analyzed, it's usually analyzed as profit or loss. If it's profitable, let's kind of just leave it. It's fine, it's working, that's kind of legacy, but we're protecting revenue and that's sort of coming in. When we do a value stream map, what we find is that value stream map talks to us and we really start to see, actually, we're spending a lot of money in supporting these legacy systems. Actually, is there better ways of doing this? Can we automate areas? Should we be moving some of this capital into other areas to build new potential services or build new infrastructure and doing things in a different way that increases our margin? And value stream mapping really helps to lift that opportunity out. So this is a really key task that I would invite you and encourage you to spend some time on really digging deep and beginning to understand. So let's have a look at how you start to build that value stream map. Now, this exercise is a process of mapping end to end, but it's high level. I keep repeating myself on the strategic and high level piece, but I really want to get it across. Do not get in the weeds, keep it high level. And once you understand your value stream, you've got to, which we spoke about that, you've got to start to map it out. Keep it strategic. Remember, we're in the macro. So this is all about order to delivery now, and starting to visualize that map. So your map should have some, it may have none or many touch points with your customer. And also it's going to have areas of where the order or the flow passes between departments. So going back to my little example on screen there, each of these areas is passing, there's 4 here, look, or 5, you're passing this between areas. What we call that passing between departments, we call that a handoff in a value stream map. And this is often where lots of value is lost, because things slow down and get bottlenecks when they pass department to department. So again, to contextualize this, think about your business, think about your value stream. When you're doing your value stream map, note all these areas, how when you're delivering that service, where it passes through, and just mark the handoff points when you're kind of drawing this out between each department. And that's a really important thing to do, because there's often bottlenecks there, and it's where you're going to start to find and pick opportunities in your value stream to either automate, improve, because there'll be waste in there, and actually start to make things better. So the reason that things tend to slow down is often because our organizations are built in operational silos. So departments are siloed essentially. So when you're mapping your value stream, what it's going to do is help you understand where there's a delay in handoff, and where, if you're in a siloed business, and some of you will have silos, where that's causing challenges. And what we're doing there is, during this process, is we're identifying that. Now, another part of this is, don't just think about the handoff areas. I want you to think about where tasks get done. So this might be, if it's in a manufacturing facility, this may be quality control areas where things are passed from department to department. There might be quality checks that need to take place. Software development, we have to do quality controls and testing. You want to note where these things happen. So again, don't go too deep. I want you to stay strategic, but I want you to mark out each of these areas and that flow of how you're delivering value from order to delivery straight through to your customer. Now, in terms of what you do with this, as I said earlier, only involve the leadership team, not just when you're thinking about the value stream itself, but in the actual mapping exercise. Just keep it to you and perhaps a couple of others. Don't do more than 4, and keep it very, very high level. And finally, once you've mapped out your value stream, the last thing to do is start to put a timeline across the bottom, breaking that time into blocks of activity. And I've given a little example on the screen there of what that would look like in terms of time. So what we're wanting you to do here is it should look something like this. You want to show waiting time and process time. So on this example here, I've got waiting time here and processing time there. So again, I'll use a manufacturing example. Once the raw material comes in, it's just raw, it's sat there. There's no real value to that until it's being processed. So how long does it sit there for? So think about your business. How long does an order sit in the order system? How long does it take a customer to complete their order request into you? How long do you take processing that order and then passing it on, passing it through? This is what your value stream map should start to look like, and you should put a timeline across the bottom of this. Now, in any normal traditional environment, this would actually be very manual. So traditionally, we would walk the floor of the office, factory, production cycle to really understand the flow. Now, for many of you, this will be already documented in probably endless Visio diagrams somewhere. So you're going to have to get them and start to dig into them and start to visualize this flow on paper. Clearly, we can't walk through the office and manufacturing plants or whatever else right now, but in a lot of businesses, and looking at a lot of the organizations that signed up to this, so the organizations that you all represent, You're definitely businesses that have probably got a lot of Visio diagrams of processes and procedures. I want you to get them, and I want you to start to lift them out and pin them together as to how order to cash really, really looks, and then put that timeline on there. That's what I want you to do. Now, the output of this is what you will have at the end of the process is a very clear, holistic view, and you're going to have an understanding of your value stream. You're going to have a map of that value stream so that you can really visualize that flow, and then using the 3 business value types, begin to really understand where waste and opportunity really is, and go back to those 3 types of value: protect, save, and new revenue. When you've done this, you can start to really look at that, and that's really going to start to inform you, and you'll see clearly and strategically how to begin to navigate a course and prioritize areas of where you can start to make improvements, but potentially, well, not potentially, I know if you do this right, you'll definitely spot where the legacy is, where you can start to invest in certainly new activities, even right now in these challenging times. So with your understanding of the value stream and mapping it out, don't forget those 3 types of business value. You can now start to really unlock the potential in your organization when you've done this task. And to kind of bring all this together, I'm going to summarize it and try to contextualize this. I know it's difficult when you're just looking at slides, but hopefully this is all starting to build a picture in your mind now. So let's start to bring this together. Having done that exercise, what is important to do is start to put the financials around it. That's really important. And it's key because the numbers around these tasks is actually what starts to bring it to life even more so than just really understanding and looking at that map. Because ultimately revenue, cash in or out, is what this is all about. It's where you're going to spend and where you're going to grow. So there's certain exercises you can carry out. One of the most common and popular one is the ABC that plays a part here. Hence the numbers are so important. Now, if you're not familiar with those exercises, let me briefly explain. ABC, or activity-based costing. You effectively cost the activity, the effort, in the value stream, and you start to put a figure on each of those core sections. Now, this data is going to help inform the decisions around innovation specifically, and where you can start to save, protect, and make new money. Now, to be clear, this isn't looking at overhead lines on the P&L. That's pretty obvious. This is about going deeper, and it looks at the cost base in delivery and will show you where you are potentially losing money in waste, especially in those key handoff areas between departments. And this is, to be honest, that's really where automation can come into the mix. So what you can see, what we're doing here is, with that information, is we're building data flows to feed into models, which is ultimately all about making data-driven decisions. So we're not guessing at an innovation project anymore. We're not asking for a business case. Business cases are a game, in my opinion. It's whoever writes the best one wins, so whoever's the best copywriter. Let's bring this down to data-driven decision making. This is what this is all about. And this exercise is ultimately going to highlight, and it will talk to you, as I said earlier. It requires you to think deeply and remember those 3 types of business value that I said, but ultimately this exercise is going to really help you understand things. Now, there are 4 bullet points there. These are the things that are really going to are what's going to be stood out or stand out when you run this exercise. And they're where you can automate, so that's saving money. Where you can innovate, that's saving, protecting, and delivers new revenue potentially. It's going to show you where you can deliver very quick value, so that's obviously saving money again. One of the big ones I want to kind of hone in on here is where current overhead is being allocated to legacy and where it can be redeployed to deliver high value. Now, in all companies, and of all the ones I've been in, bar none, cash is being spent on legacy. And there's a belief that they're protecting revenue. Now, in some cases, they are, and it is necessary. But in all cases that I've witnessed and seen, bar none, I promise you, all cases, way too much was being spent in the legacy areas. And what this exercise did is it helped strike that balance and identified where we could divert existing cash. This was money that was already budgeted, already being spent in supporting legacy systems. Once we did this exercise, we were able to very quickly discern and identify, actually, do you know what, we can not spend half as much as this, maybe a third or whatever else, and actually put this into an innovation program and actually start to enhance these systems or offer new services, working with our existing clients, working potentially with new clients to build new things, new stuff that's going to help us. These activities should be being done right now, and this process will highlight where you definitely can be diverting some of that existing legacy spend and investment. So this entire process is going to be about delivering strategic outputs. It's going to highlight where the waste is, where you can save money. It's going to highlight the innovation opportunities. I've said that's new, protect, and save. So those are those three types of business value again. They're going to provide you with some insights into how you can invest in improvement, whether that's automation, innovation. I remember I said a few times about diverting that spend, but vitally, it's going to provide you with data so that you can start making more data-driven decisions. Now, for some of you, business right now may have stopped completely. You furloughed staff, there's no orders coming in. And if that's the case, now more than ever, you have an ideal opportunity to do this exercise, to really start to look at this in the round as a whole. Now, these tough times are going to come to pass. And we don't know when that's going to be. I'm certainly not, saying that that's round the corner necessarily or next week, but they are going to come to pass. And remember that opening slide that I had at the start there, the companies that will survive are the ones that are most adaptive and responsive to change. And I would just urge everybody to take the opportunity now to really start to understand value and value stream mapping so that you can start to unpick exactly where there is opportunity in your value stream. I promise you that there will be some there. And so responding to change, to be responsive is where it's all about. And to do that, you have to have data insight. You've got to have both. You've got to have data and you've got to have insights. And you just need to understand it. And the map will speak to you, I promise you. And it's where you're going to begin to build those data insights and give you that really holistic picture and enable you to lead with clarity and through what is a crisis and a very difficult time. But with that clarity and with that focus that we spoke about earlier, this is where we can really respond to change well and configure ourselves well. So when you do this exercise, don't just see it as a one-off. It's something that should appear in your annual, sometimes in some organizations, biannual operational reviews. This is something, what I'm saying here, guys, is this is something you should do more than once. Don't just do it once and forget it. Have this as part of your activity-based work that you do strategically year in, year out. For much larger organizations, those that are multinational, you might only do this once a year, but you should definitely be doing it at least once, maybe twice a year, and really digging down and looking into this. Now, before I jump into the Q&A, there's a couple of questions that have come in as I've been going through, and I'll come to those in a minute. But before I jump into the Q&A, I just want to quickly touch on innovation and new money a little bit more to try and sort of bring this to life a bit, really. There is opportunity in your value stream. I've not been inside any business yet and not found new money when doing this exercise. And I want to help contextualize this again, but specifically around new money. Now, if you think about startup businesses that you would be familiar with, some big names and big brands, ultimately that have come around in the last sort of 10 years or so, any of those new startups looking to disrupt a market, essentially all they've done is dissect an incumbent's value stream. So you think about any of those businesses on the screen there now, Netflix, Uber, Revolut, Starling, Apple, Monzo. Think about those companies. They've spotted something, a problem, an inefficiency, an issue, and then they've used technology to solve it. They've got access to the same markets as their competitors. They've got access to the same people. In most instances, when these lots started up, they had nowhere near the same level of access to capital and cash. In fact, they had less access. Yet all of these companies have been able to disrupt and in some instances wipe out the incumbent completely. These are just a few tech-savvy disruptors and examples. If you look, and I mean really look at these organizations and their operating practice, there's lots of things that they have in common. And there's lots of businesses like that are entering into your market. And there's an opportunity for you now. There's been an opportunity for a while, but now more than ever to really look at this stuff deeply. And I'm wanting to sort of inspire innovation here, because now is the time to look at it as well. If you look at those businesses that were on that previous slide, all of them have got the following in common. They've got agile operating structures. A percentage of their income is allocated to innovation. They've got strong customer feedback loops. They closely monitor their competition. They monitor the value streams to see where to disrupt. They're gathering that data and assessing it. They've got the models to do that. Essentially, folks, what I'm waxing lyrical about here is that these guys do what I've shown you today constantly, and they evaluate that value stream, and they diversify and disrupt based on a map. And I believe wholeheartedly that if you go off and start to do these things, you too can ultimately do the same, protect, save, and generate new money and increase that value. Irrelevant of the tough times that we're in, there is definitely opportunity in your value stream. So in summary, here is what we've just been through over the last sort of 35 minutes or so, and what we've learned today. So there was 3 types of business value: the save money, protect income, and the new money. Now, this is really going to help get clarity when reviewing the value stream and the operational activities that take place inside your organization. We then looked at the value stream and how we map it, and how the map then helps to really unlock that potential in your existing value stream, and where ultimately that margin can be increased. We spent a bit of time then looking at the value, the map itself, and again, importantly, this is going to highlight where waste is, where there's automation opportunity, and vitally, the map is really going to show you where the legacy spend can be diverted and new money made with higher return on investments. That's the bit that you should really start to get out of that value stream map. We also looked at the importance of adopting agile operating structures, and I hope that's come through in this very short session today. And finally, something else I hope you've picked out through this is that the matrix approach far outweighs the siloed approach. I'm not going to dig into the detail of matrix, but I hope you get what I mean there. You don't want to be having siloed operational units anymore. This is matrix all about having cross-functioning, high-performing teams. Success leaves clues. If you look at those other businesses on the other slide there, they are very much matrixed rather than they are siloed. So there's a few questions that have come in, so I'm going to answer those now. If you've got questions, feel free to fire those into me as we go through as I go through these as well. So some of the questions that have come in here, one of which is, Jonathan, is there merit in communicating this activity? Right, so the question is there merit in communicating activity with clients? The short answer to that is yes, absolutely. My experience has always been that companies are often quite, I don't use the word scared, but they're a little bit averse to talking out loud about their activities around innovation and what they're looking at. And I'm not saying that you promote your value stream and your map and stick it up there, but I understand the question that you're asking here, Jonathan, and that is, should we be communicating the activity that we're doing with clients in order to presumably involve the clients in the process? Absolutely. Businesses often avoid it, and it's a mistake. To coin a phrase, it's a bit like being in a bar or winking at a girl in the dark. You know what you're doing, but she's got no idea. You've got to advertise what it is that you're doing, and your customers right now are looking for leadership. They're looking at you to understand what it is that you're going to do to lead and navigate a course through this crisis. And it's not just now, they've been looking at that for years. And if you do this properly and involve them, not necessarily in the whole strategic process, but in parts of this process, and communicate with them what you're doing through your account directors or whoever else you have in your business that manages that kind of comms flow with your clients, there's lots and lots of value in that. Another question here was, beyond the strategic part, when do you bring others in? Okay, so yes, this is a good question actually, because so when you look at the higher level stuff, as I said, it was all strategic, you only want a few people. I can tell by the person that's asked this question where you're in terms of the organisation you work with. It's a very big organisation. You've probably got lots of people, product owners, managers, operational people that do lots of stuff that could add, that add to this. Now, you bring them in the implementation part. So let me be clear and break that down. Value stream and value stream mapping is what we're going to do, not how, it's what. You discern and determine the what at a strategic level, and then you give that to the implementers and servant lead them at that point. Now, innovation isn't just about the girls and the guys at the top making strategic decisions. You absolutely should be innovating from within. That's another kind of subject altogether. This is about looking at what we have now, and you do involve these guys somewhere downstream, but getting a strategic sort of view of the world is important first. Involve them when it's, when we're looking at the how part. And if you're configured properly, your agile infrastructures and setup should enable your people at a grassroots level who are on the shop floor, so to speak, to feed into those innovation ideas and to generate new ideas and so on and so forth. So, this on its own is very powerful, value stream and value stream mapping. But when you've been through that whole transformation piece and you've got all this plumbed together with lots of other areas, it becomes exponentially powerful. This is just one part. I hope that answers the question there. You bring them in sort of later down the line. But so that's all about servant leadership. Another one here is, as a retail brand, where do we start with this process? We spend significantly on legacy to protect. Okay, that's difficult to answer specifically without me fully understanding your business in truth in a lot of detail. But I guess with legacy, in terms of IT, in a retail, I'd expect you probably to potentially have both. See, again, it'd help when you're a bit more detail, but I'll give you the best as I can with this, given the limited information that I have. If you've got on and offline channels, you've got two value streams straight away there, and they will likely cross over. But put the time into both and start the process. Don't go searching for legacy, is what I'd say. When you're doing this, and this isn't just in relation to Amy, this is in relation to anybody who's doing this process. I've spoke about legacy quite a bit. Don't go searching for it. Let the map lift it out, and then stay at a very high level. So what you should be doing really is starting at the start when you're doing this, Amy, to be honest. Don't go looking for the legacy. You've obviously identified that you spend a lot on legacy already. You probably know that. But just go through the process. You've probably got off and online channels. Map the two out and start to look at that and dig into dig deep into that and really go through it. And the final one here is, how do you place financials on the map and keep high level? Okay, so look at where the spend initially is in delivery. So mark that, include the people cost in all of that, and the legacy systems often have lots of people. So this isn't necessarily saying, what's sort of data center cost, software cost, all of that matters. Again, that's quite micro level, keep it macro, but essentially just take that cost and just jot it on the maps. That's what that cost is there. You remember the timeline that we drew on one of the other slides? I had on the other slide. You can put the cost there. So what's the cost of weight? What's the cost of process? Cost of weight, cost of process. That will start to build that out. And what you can then do underneath that again is then start to pinpoint that. Remember I said pinpoint the handoffs. There's a cost in there, that's weight. But then just start to just jot on some of those costs. And often what we tend to do is there's a model that I use. You can start to pull a spreadsheet together to do all of that. So that's how we do it. So any more questions? No, I think that's pretty much it. So well, there you have it. Thanks for joining me. I hope you've taken some learning from that today. If you'd like to make contact, you can do so by any of the means on the screen there. Thanks ever so much for joining me and your time. I'm going to wrap this up. It's been recorded and I'll email it out to you. Feel free to share it with your colleagues. As I say, I hope that's been of benefit to you and that you've taken something from that. Stay safe, stay well. Thanks again for joining, and hopefully get to speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.